Hi, I'm Jonathan Gabay, author of Traders. For the past few years, I've been on a fascinating, often disturbing journey exploring how honest people have lost out to hard sell. We've reached a crossroads in the ongoing story of hype and its sinister partner, propaganda. Spoon-fed with photoshopped ideals, now bent double, suffering from the after effects of indigestion, global economy, global confidence, it's all totally wrecked. Bloated and bedridden, the social economy is flinching from the open sores of remorse and bitter cynicism. Respected leaders, once assumed to be decent and ethical, have profited and proliferated at the cost of the hard-working, naive, and accidentally hapless. Paralleling President Obama's inauguration speech, brands cannot prosper long whilst they favour only the prosperous. So how did we really get here, and what happens next? To begin with, some organisations would prefer that you totally ignore sole traders. Some disenfranchised groups will find this book a direct threat. But it's time for truth. Decade by decade, certain commercial, political and cultural causes tempted us into buying into far-fetched ideals that actually turned out to be short-term fixes and long-term shallow promises. In the 20s, the US government used puffery to repitch optimism to the American people. In the 1930s, fanatics refined propaganda. Incredibly, corporations, many of whom later became some of today's best-loved high street names, actually profited from the death and destruction of those fascist regimes. In the aftermath of World War II, the big guns of PR spin targeted a warily and wearily American public with wholesome ideals. By the rock and roll era, the American dream was restored. But as housewives used branded hairspray to retouch their curls, cigarette manufacturers were ensnaring their teenagers with promises of identifiable icons. In the 60s, whilst the propaganda machine churned out a climate of Cold War fear, in the West, the credo of individual choice was being shouted from every rooftop. Decades later, corporations manipulated that same conviction to encourage mass consumerism. During my extensive journey into the darker side of business, society and politics, I encountered underhanded trickery used to convince us to invest time, money, effort and even lives into what we want, but not necessarily need. Advertising men gave us iron ladies. Hollywood turned icons into bankable brands. Football teams tackled sports sponsorship. Al-Qaeda weaved the web into a recruitment tool. And so the abuse of our trust continued. I discover how the White House turned to Madison Avenue to sell the war on terror, and uncover how, given the right angle and emotive subject, even the most haunting news pictures can lie, and stars can be made to sparkle. In today's turbulent times, I discover a completely different angle of the woeful tale on the worldwide crunch on jobs, squeeze on trade, as well as manicured response by those who actually landed us in this mess. Seeing the impact on society all around, I just can't help but ask if we will ever learn from this murky past. Truth and belief share the same Latin root, credere. With confidence in our businesses, leaders and causes slipping away, it's time for simple, ethical marketing reformation. Hope can be regained, belief can be reclaimed. I trust you'll join me.